So, what about the evolution of IMDC criteria from prognostic initially to now as a predictive treatment selectors? What do you think, Tian? How should we use them?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about IMDC criteria quite a bit, and just a reminder for our audience that this is really a set of clinical criteria from less than a year from initial diagnosis to treatment, poor Karnofsky performance status, as well as a list of laboratory findings of hypercalcemia, neutrophilia, thrombocytosis, as well as anemia that really reflect the inflammatory and perineoplastic type of syndromes that patients present with. And over a decade ago now, Danny Heng and his colleagues, initially at the Dana-Farber and also the International Metastatic Renal Cell Carcinoma Database Consortium, gathered the data, and through multivariate analyses, these 6 risk factors came out to be prognostic. And the initial data that was published in JCO in 2009 showed that patients who had 0 of the risk factors actually had a really good prognostic outcome, about 4-year overall survival. Patients with 1 or 2 risk factors with intermediate risk disease had about a 2-year overall survival, and then patients with poor risk disease, 3 or more risk factors, that median overall survival was quite poor at only about 9 months. And so we've come a long way from using that as a prognostic risk stratification to now stratification in our phase 3 upfront frontline trials. And so because of that, and the patients really have fallen into these categories of favorable, intermediate, and poor risk disease, that when that we now have novel immune therapy combinations and that have differing efficacies and data and comparatively to other the standard of care VEGF inhibitors. And so in that setting, IMDC criteria really has changed and moved into more of a predictive biomarker in terms of the clinical factors that we can choose from to think about treatment selection. And so because of that, I think you saw the NCCN guidelines change about a year ago to reflect the growing categories and dependence on IMDC criteria. So in real world practice, we certainly used and turned to IMDC criteria first now to think about what are the right treatment options to discuss with our patients.
Yeah, wonderful. So what are people's thoughts on mechanism of action and the targets for available VEGF TKIs? Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think starting in 2016 with the publication of the METEOR study, and then with the 3-arm study with lenvatinib and everolimus versus everolimus alone or lenvatinib alone, we started to see agents that had novel targets that were different than many of the earlier drugs that had come out, such as pazopanib, sunitinib, axitinib, sorafenib. So cabozantinib, by targeting VEGFR2, but also hitting MET and AXL, as well as other pathways, seems to be extremely, in my opinion, the most active TKI that we have in terms of how it's demonstrated overall survival advantage post-TKI. And so it's a drug that, to me, I have a lot of faith in, even in later line settings. Lenvatinib is a very interesting drug with its targeting of the FGFR axis, and we're seeing lenvatinib come along quickly in a variety of different tumor types. It was just approved with pembrolizumab in uterine cancer. It's showing a lot of strength across a number of different fronts, and so it clearly is doing something, both tweaking, targeting the cancer cell, but also the microenvironment in unique ways that may make it a great partner with immunotherapy. Same with cabozantinib.